Okay, hi, this is the first tutorial on how to use the command line. We are going to go over the different commands that will be useful for doing scientific programming in Python. We're just going to talk about some of the simple ways that you can use the command line for different useful purposes, such as moving in and out of directories, as well as making directories, and um, figuring out where you are. So just basic navigation through the command line. So the command line goes by different names in different operating systems. On the Macintosh systems, it's called the terminal. In a Linux system, it's going to be called the bash. And on Windows, it's going to be PowerShell. So what it is it's just a program that allows you to directly manipulate the computer. It's the command line is what people used before there were before the graphical user interface, which is the mouse and icons way that we typically interact with computers, like these folders over here off to the side on a desktop. I can click on them. I'm moving a mouse. That's the GUI. This is the command line interface, which sometimes goes by CLI instead of GUI. The graphical user interface is the command line interface CLI. So it's just a little bit of background. Let's go ahead and get started. So one of the first commands we want to learn is PWD, and that stands for Print Working Directory. So as soon as you open up your terminal, your command line, go ahead and type in PWD and press enter. It shows you where you are currently at on the computer. Your file path is what it's sometimes called. So print working directory, print means that it prints it to the screen. So it'll actually print out something. In this case it shows /users /Derek Miller. A directory means a folder. So from now on, I'll refer to folders as directories because that's the technical term for it, and it'll make a little bit more sense when we start using other commands. So PWD, print the working directory, the directory in which you are currently in right now. Other commands that are useful, we can list the directories and the other items that are contained in the directory that we're in right now. So right now we're in this Derek Miller directory, who is a user of the computer. So if we type in ls list, it shows a number of other directories that we can choose from. For example, there is the desktop that you can see right over here. The desktop is a directory in this case, so we can actually move onto the desktop directory. You do that by cd and then typing in the name exactly as it is of the directory. So in this case, a lowercase desktop is not guaranteed to work. So we want to copy it exactly as it's written up there. So CD. CD stands for change directory. So we're going to change directory onto the desktop. So now notice it changed here from the little tilde, which the tilde just represents the very basic computer. That's where we are. It's where we start out, and now we have moved to the desktop. So now that we're on the desktop, let's see what's inside the desktop by typing ls. We're listing the things that are on the desktop. Okay, it looks like there are 4 folders: junk, library, Python, and work. And notice those correspond to the folders that I actually have on my desktop. So notice this is the command line interface, CLI, and this is the GUI over here, GUI, graphical user interface. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into another directory like the Python directory. Okay, so now we are in the Python directory. Let's go ahead and see what's in there. Okay, so now we have a bunch of different things. We can tell that these are files because they have a dot ending. The file name, by convention, has a dot at the end of it. That helps tell the computer what program to open up the file in if it doesn't recognize the dot ending. So sometimes there are like .do files for a program called Stata, So those .do files, the computer is not usually able to recognize those and what program to open them in, so it'll prompt you, what program should I open this with? And it'll give you a list of options of a program that you can open it with. But the dot ending helps identify what kind of a file it is. So .txt files are just simple raw text files. .py files are going to be our Python code files, and .csv files are what's called comma separated values files, which are convenient for working in Excel. All right, so if we want to move back a directory, we'll go ahead and type in cd and then space and ... Okay, and so the ... notation is referring to the directory previous to the one that we're currently in right now. So if we type in the ... notice right here we have moved back onto the desktop. So the ... stands for the one that's previous. A single dot actually stands for the current directory in which we're in. Notice that once I typed the one dot, we just stayed on the desktop directory. If we wanted to see what else is on the desktop, we could potentially move into like a work folder. And let's say that we're right here. We can pwd, print working directory. All right, so this is where we are. This is where we are on the computer, currently working. If we wanted to go all the way back to the beginning, to where we started out with, we can type in cd and press enter. And notice we have moved all the way back to the very beginning where we started. We can type in ls, and there it is, all the different directories that we have available to move into. Notice that the screen right now is a little bit, well, it's filled with all of the previous commands and the output that the computer gave us. So if we wanted to clean this up a little bit without changing anything on our computer, we can type in clear, and that will clear everything off the screen that was getting kind of messy. So let's say that we wanted to move onto our desktop. Notice I don't have to press ls if I already know what's in the current directory. So then now we're on the desktop. I know that while on the desktop I can move into my Python folder. Alright, so here we are in my Python folder. Let's see what's in the Python folder. Okay, a bunch of different things. Let's go ahead and look at this file called Spanish.txt. It's going to have some information in it. So actually, why don't we go ahead and take a look at test.csv. If we want to look at the contents of a file, a nice easy command to use is the cat command. I actually don't know exactly what it stands for, but it allows you to view what's inside of the file without having to open it with another program. So we can do test.csv to go what's inside of it, and it looks like there are some numbers contained and they're separated by commas. So that's a nice easy way to take a look at what's, we could do that cat to homework.txt. Alright, and this is some of the homework problems that I've been assigned in one of my classes. So again, if we wanted to clear, we can always clear. And the most important command that we're going to run right now is the Python command. Now, there are two ways of thinking about this. There is the command line, which is when we're directly talking to the computer, we're communicating with it, and we send the computer a command and it gives us back, it executes the command and then waits for another command. When we type in Python and press enter, after we've installed Python, it will bring us into Python mode. We are now no longer talking to the computer, we're talking to Python. And so the commands are going to be different. Notice if I type in clear here, it's not going to recognize what's going on. We're dealing with a completely different system here. So We can do a few things in Python. Before we end the tutorial, we'll go ahead and say, let's declare some variables. We can do a equals 5, b equals 3, and then we can do some basic addition. And let's see what that prints out. A plus b is going to be 8. Notice it took the value that is in A, the value that's in b, and it added them together. We can also do this with strings. So let's say that your name is Bob, and your last name is Anderson. Okay, so now we can use a process called concatenation, where you add words together. Now it's going to be very literal. When it sticks them together, there's no space that's going to be included. If we wanted to give a space, then we can do a comma b, and it'll show it in a slightly different form. There is the print command, which we're going to get used to. We're going to get very familiar, which literally displays the output that's in the variables. And that gives us our nice clean space. So as you can see, there are some things that we'll be going over in the Python Basics tutorial. This is just a very brief introduction. So refer to the Python Basics tutorial for more information. If we want to get out of Python mode and talk to the computer again, we can type in quit and open close parenthesis. Quit is a function that will take us out of Python when we press enter. And notice we are now back on the command line. The way you can tell whether you're in Python mode or on the command line is by how your line looks. If there are 3 greater than signs, you are in Python mode. But if it displays something along this line, along these lines, then you know that you are on the command line. So the Python command can actually be accessed from anywhere. So here I am back on my regular starting point on the command line. If I type in Python there, it'll take me straight to Python. I can quit out of it. I can move on to my desktop. So Python can be accessed anywhere. And we'll leave it at that and watch for the next Python Basics tutorial. That's the next tutorial after this one. See you there.